Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sarah Fenske. On Friday, Trolley Roach, the president and CEO of Bi-State Development, attempted to throw the Loop Trolley a lifeline. On the table was a proposal for the Public Transit Agency to take over the $51 million trolley project. The trolley had closed last year basically after running out of money. And Roach wanted the agency to try to manage the 2.2-mile fixed track route. But things didn't go the way Roach wanted them to, and joining us today to talk about what happened and where the project stands is St. Louis Public Radio reporter Kae Petrin. Kae, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
So you were at the meeting last Friday. What happened?
So Roach presented his plan to the committee members, which are also mostly commissioners with Bi-State Development. And they had a lot of questions and concerns, and he tried to address them. And then it came to basically taking a motion. Do we pass this on to the Board of Commissioners and recommend that they vote on it? And one person said, I submit a motion, and nobody else seconded.
Could not get a second.
Mm-hmm.
So that basically stalls this proposal. Is Trolley Roach going to try again to try to get a second person on board to getting this to a full vote?
He said he's done, and unless the commissioners come back and say revisit this, he wouldn't be going back to it. He said he doesn't expect the commissioners to ask him to do that either.
So if you're listening, we want to know, do you think this is truly the end of the line for the trolley? Why or why not? You can give us a call at 314-382-8255. That's 382-TALK. Or you can send us a tweet at STL on air or email us at talk@stlpublicradio.org. Now, Kae, you were there when another local reporter compared the current trolley situation to a political football. Let's listen to the response from Loop Trolley President John Meyer.
I don't even think a football is the right metaphor. It's more like a nuclear waste dump. Nobody wants to get near it, but somebody's got to make it successful. That's what political leadership is supposed to be about. I'm sad that we're lacking that in our region today.
So a nuclear waste dump, we certainly know those in the St. Louis area. Do you think that's an apt analogy?
You know, I wouldn't be able to say. I think he is sort of pointing to nobody wants to touch this project and nobody wants to be on the hook for it. And I think that's an accurate observation that, it seems like it's really hard to get somebody to put the money in to keep it running. He, of course, wants somebody to keep it running, but
can't get that to happen.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's anyone interested in investing that kind of money.
Now, you mentioned that committee members had some specific concerns about this. What kind of things were they worried about?
So there were a lot of questions that sort of, I think the big issue was resource allocation. We have so many other concerns, so many other things we're trying to get through. Why would we invest our time and money in this, especially when the public in general is not a fan? There were some specific details related to the plan to things like, where is this money coming from? What would it be going to? In other cases, for instance, there was some money that would have been set aside in case the trolleys broke down, and that money would have been coming out of funds that could be used for bus parts, for instance.
So people were worried that they were sort of robbing the primary mission of this agency if they were to put that money aside for the trolley.
Yeah, it was $800,000, so it wasn't a huge chunk, but people were still worried, what else could that money be doing? And I think there was a general sentiment that Bi-State should not make itself responsible for the issues that the trolley has had.
Now, Elliot Davis of Fox 2, he had aired a piece in the days just before the vote suggesting that Trolley Roach himself might have a conflict of interest here since he sits on the board of the Loop Trolley and he's also the CEO of Bi-State Development. Were people troubled by that at all at the meeting?
Somebody did ask about it. It's not like Roach volunteered himself to be in that position. It's appointed. The person who preceded Roach at Bi-State also had that position. It's sort of, a requirement for X number of people from various agencies around the region to participate in this. It's not like they're necessarily personally invested in the project.
Okay. And he's certainly not benefiting from his participation in this project. It's an unpaid role.
I wouldn't know, but yes, it is an unpaid role, and if anything, it seems like it's bringing him more trouble than benefits. But there could be, something behind the scenes that we're not aware of. It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
But
so speaking of trouble, so the Federal Transit Administration had provided $34 million in grants towards what ended up being, I guess, a $52 million project. The trolley operated for only a little over a year. So what are the concerns about how the feds could react to what now looks like total shutdown?
Yeah, so there were a couple different types of grant money that the trolley received. And basically the Fed said, part of it, totally fine. We would have done those projects anyways. That investment you get to keep. But the trolley-specific investment sort of came with a guarantee that you'd keep it running. And since you're not keeping it running, that means we could sue you. So there's it's $2.499 million that a representative of the Federal Transit Administration said, if someone doesn't keep this running, doesn't have to be by state, but has to be someone, we might have to come after you in court.
Just for the $2.49 million, though, not for the total 34.
Not for the 2.499 was the wrong number. 24.99. Much bigger number.
Much bigger number.
It's about 25 million.
Gotcha. So that is what we could be on the hook for as a region. And what do we know about which entities are technically on the hook now that nobody has taken this over?
So the Transportation Development District, which is sort of the sales district that Roach and several other public officials are on, is one of the names sort of on the hook. And then the other is East West Gateway, which is sort of a local council of governments that was part of sort of the entities that made the application for the grant money. It's not totally clear who would end up paying if they were sued. They're not entities that really have, a lot of cash just lying around. But there's been some reference to potentially having to garnish the sales tax district, basically, or something, things along those lines. But nobody's really gotten a clear answer on how that would be structured.
We're talking to Kae Petrin, a reporter at St. Louis Public Radio, about the trolley project. I want to go to the phone lines. We've got a couple callers here, and let's see what they have to say. Jerry is calling from O'Fallon. Jerry, hi, you're on St. Louis on the Air.
Hello. It's kind of sad. I could tell, having been in the transportation industry, that they were having operational difficulties, and it just there were just too many obstacles. But I also think a lot of people were, not unhappy to see it fail. But since the hard work is done with the tracks actually being laid, I think it's really kind of a waste to not look at it with some other potential of, it doesn't necessarily have to be the retro type trolley cars. It could be the, modern trams that you see all over in Europe. Because, unfortunately, how much payback do we get from, say, a rural highway that's used by a handful of people a day, and no one seems to complain about that. But when it comes to public transportation, it seems like in this state and almost the entire country, it's like your dentist saying you should floss and then handing you a half-inch piece of dental floss. So I think we need to take a little bit better, a longer-term view of really the necessity of it, as we have an aging population, and we're the dependence on cars is a real problem for people in the lower income brackets. Anyway, that's my thought.
Jerry, thank you so much for that call. Kae, have there been any rumblings about what might happen to the tracks? Is there anything that could come out of this?
So at one point early on in this process, I had heard mention that there was supposed to be a fund for filling back in the tracks if it failed. I honestly have no idea if that's a weird rumor or what it is, but there have been some people like, whatever happened to that? The question I still need to answer. And there is a chance that somebody could keep it running still. In the bi-state meeting, they were like, why don't we get a private donor to do it? What happened to all these people who pledged money while we were building it, who suddenly aren't available to help cover the deficits? So there's some options for what could still happen.
Now, Tom in Webster Groves actually gave us a call just now. He didn't stay on the line, but he says local retired billionaire financier Rex Sinkfield should save the trolley. He certainly has invested money in a lot of things in St. Louis. That's a suggestion. I want to go back to the phone lines. Rich is calling from Bevo. Rich, hi, you're on St. Louis on the air.
Hi, Sarah. I think Kay made a really salient point about, the trolley just doesn't have popular support. Mm-hmm. And as the previous caller pointed out, I would advocate for mass transit on a scale like they have in Europe, having lived there for several years, a long time ago. But since it doesn't have that kind of support, and I'm just sorry that that Joe made a little mistake here and just pave over the tracks and make Delmar Boulevard navigable and drivable again. And, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Rich, thank you for that comment. So Rich would like to take things back to the way that they were. As he says, there just really isn't popular support for this project, and that became very clear at that meeting you were at.
Yeah, there were a couple public speakers at the meeting who were, very vocal about not wanting it. And I mean, even when I was writing these stories, you post online about the trolley and you're like, I'm looking for someone to discuss this with. And a lot of people are not even, willing to think about how could we keep this running. They just they hate it and they want it to go away.
I think people felt so angry. We just don't have that much money for public transit in our community. And the fact that so much went into this 2.2 miles that didn't really go where people wanted to go. People seemed almost personally insulted by the end.
And there's a lot of public transit already in that area is what people, it's within walking distance of 4 metro stations, and there's bus routes. And so there's a lot of people asking, if we do want this to be public transit, truly, why is it, in this area that is already so covered by our systems? So
let's go back to the phone lines. Rebecca is calling from University City. Rebecca, hi, you're on St. Louis on the air.
Oh, thank you. I live in U City, just around the corner from where the trolley used to be parked. Mm. I watched the building of the trolley and the devastation on Delmar, and a lot of small businesses suffered because of that. For example, Big Shark moved completely out of the loop and away to get away from the tracks. But a lot of small business, you had to climb over piles of junk to get to their doors. I just think we owe them something for the business that they lost, and some of them went out of business. I think we need to continue with the trolley because I think we put a lot into it so far.
So it sounds like you're saying just because of that turmoil and heartache that this is worth sticking this out.
Yeah, I'm not an accountant, so I don't know how that works out, but I just think there are a lot of people who were harmed in the business community, and the trolley could be a lot of fun for them, I think, positive.
Well, Rebecca, thank you for that call, and it's good to hear another perspective here. We certainly always hear from people who've wanted to shut this down, but there is another side. Now, Kate, just one last question for you. I know you've been covering this trolley saga now for quite a long time here. I'm wondering, is there an aspect of this ongoing story that you'd like to see more attention to going forward?
That's interesting. The question that I sort of had was something that was brought up at the bi-state meeting, which was that there were a lot of people who pledged financial support to this. And I kind of want to know, I want to go back and look at those records and see who that was and, whether they've done it. And there's no legal obligation, but I think there's sort of a communal sentiment that, we put this together on the assumption that XYZ people would be helping out with it. Did they back out? What's going on with that?
Where are they now?
Yeah, so that's one of the really big questions that I have as a reporter.
Well, I hope to see you following up on that. So, St. Louis Public Radio reporter Kae Petrin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.